Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Al Berner, filmmaker, journalist, human rights activist, dedicated to mentoring and supporting the mental health and progress of others. Her philosophy is that through self examination and personal accountability, we can all drastically improve our quality of life and how we affect others. And she is also the founder of the Mind Your Business Music Conference. Welcome to the show, Al Berner.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, AJ. I'm excited to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be learning about empowerment and social change from you. And before we come to this, let's understand a bit more about you, Elburn, about your background, about your journey, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Wow, it's hard to know where to get started. I always tell people that there are two sides to who I am. The person who is the humanitarian has worked with the unhoused. I've done HIV consultations and HIV education. I've done street outreach, personal mentoring. And the person that is the entertainer has done acting, modeling, and filmmaking. And I think that for me creates the perfect balance in terms of fulfillment because I'm able to uh, fulfill the creative aspect of who I am, and I'm able to help others with my life experiences, with my compassion and my empathy, which I tend to have through my environment, and just I think it's innate. I think that some people are innately born compassionate and feel compelled to help others, and I've been like that since I was a child. I was always that kid that had to try to save the bird if I saw a wounded bird, that sort of thing, and just always looking to be like a do-gooder, which is kind of corny when you're young. You kind of can get like a bad rap for that, but that's intrinsically who I am. So eventually, I embraced it, and I made that my career path and just my life's work.
Absolutely, absolutely, Alberna. So I want to understand. You talked about, working across so many things, achieving for yourself. 30-year background in the entertainment business as an indie artist, manager, music journalist, event planner, and filmmaker. And then you are the founder of Mind Your Own Business Music Conference, and also your film, The Rise of Eve, which addresses gender-based issues facing women globally. So I want to understand about, you talked about self-value, and you talk about self-value. Uh, Many a times,
Yes.
people create their perception of self-value around the work they do. What would you like to tell them, about self-value? Is it about what you do, or is it about beyond that, about who you are, what you can do? Help us understand that, because that is where a lot of,
Right.
confusion can happen nowadays.
Yeah. I think when you say what you do and who you are, for some people, they're unable to make that distinction. And for myself, I know that that's one and the same for me because what I do and who I am is the same. I'm sure you've heard the adage, find something you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life. When I began working with the unhoused in particular, for those of you who don't know, that's the more politically correct way of what we would usually call homeless, the homeless population. My mother worked there when I was young, 12 or 13. I was going to work with her and volunteering, and I would watch her and her compassion toward others who were in a very unfortunate and destitute situation. And I likened the way that she treated them to like the cool teacher. Because we all have like teachers in school who are intimidating and teachers who are very cool. And you don't expect the teacher to be that cool because they have authority and because of the generation gap. And I would watch my mom. She would wield her position with compassion and use it to uplift people and make them laugh. And I picked that up very young. I was like, I bet everybody's not this good at this and everybody's not this polite and loving and uplifting. And I said, I want to do something like this when I get older. And I went back to that very shelter when I became older, when I was volunteering with my mother. And I stayed there for 20 years. And that was who I was and what I did. So for me, it was one and the same because even if I wasn't doing that and collecting a paycheck and making that my living, in some capacity in my life, I'd be helping people at that level. It might not be with the unhoused, but it would be the same idea. I tend to feel a lot of compassion for marginalized populations, and I want to kind of get in there and talk to them about what it is that they want for themselves and try to get them motivated. Try to get them to find value in things that they've already accomplished in ways that they've helped others, whether they're even aware of it. I'll start to ask them to give me anecdotes. I'll just start talking to them about where'd you go to school and who are your friends and have you ever been here or done that? And then people start to say, well, I traveled or I used to do this. And I'll help them find their value in whatever it is that they've done because I think that there's value in everything that we do. And that's really what it comes down to who you are and what you do. I think in a way they're inextricable. Um, I hope that when we talk about the negative things that we do, that's not who we are. I saw an adage once that said you are what you repeatedly do, and that's interesting. So I guess that's supposed to mean if you lie a lot, you're a liar. If you give a lot, you're a giver. I think there's some truth to that, but I think we're multi-layered. So I think to a certain degree, we're a little bit of all those things. I don't think anybody's perfectly honest, but I don't think we are all liars at the level of pathologically the way that people think of it. So in finding out who you are, I think you have to make a determination for yourself what it is that you're trying to achieve that makes you proud, that makes you feel like you're presenting yourself or you see yourself in a way that you want others to see you, whether it's a giver, whether it's a humanitarian, whether it's to be a successful musician or just be respected in the field that you work in. It could be finance. I think that's where you find your self value. And I think it's an individual choice, whatever is important to you, whatever it is you're trying to achieve. As long as you're pursuing that and you're doing that with integrity and you're doing that with consistency and you're getting the respect that you would want from your peers and you feeling good about yourself, I think that's at least your foundation for self value. I don't think that it's necessarily financial. I didn't make anybody type of money at all working in the homeless population. And financially, that's one of the worst decisions I've ever made. If I'm being honest, AJ, there was nothing in that. I had jobs working in factories that I made more money. So never confuse, price and value or money and value. Some people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. They don't necessarily equate.
Right, right, Albert. Now, you said, about being who you are and what you do. For you, it is both the things. You you must have worked towards it. Or what did it happen to you from the first day itself? How did you make it work? But because a lot of people are not able to do that. They are something and they do something else. And they keep on changing their goalposts, as they go along, just by themselves, for themselves. It's nothing wrong with that, but I just want to understand, those tips and tricks that guided you to be doing what you do and who you are.
When we talk about the humanitarian part of me versus the entertainment part, I'd like to make a distinction with that. Um, Certain goals are difficult to attain. And I think that's where you get lost in your self value. If you want to be successful in the entertainment industry, it's very easy to say, I'm still playing the same circuit. I can't break out of a regional audience, or I'm not selling a lot on Spotify. And then you start to say, I'm not successful as we gauge success in that industry, which a lot of times is based on metrics. How many followers do you have? How many streams have you had? How many shows have you had this month? So it's fair for that to be considered a type of success. I think would be irresponsible and a little idealistic to say that that doesn't have some part of how we determine success. But when you look at an industry like that, unless you are working for a label and you're responsible for hitting certain metrics because they're depending on you financially, you can determine for yourself what you want those goals to be. And it goes back to what I said earlier. This is where I think they cross and they become one and the same. You can determine what's valuable to you. What is it that makes you feel fulfilled? If you can fill up a venue of 50 people, a small club, and they can all be very enthusiastic or sing along with your music and actually know your lyrics, or come up to you and say, hey, one of your songs inspired me to do this or that, or it got me through a difficult time when I was in a dark headspace, then that is successful. That makes you a successful human being. That makes your music successful at inspiring others. And when you talk about what I did in terms of my career path, that wasn't something that was difficult to attain in terms of there's not like a high degree of competition. It's not hard to get into if you want to go and work for a shelter. It's fairly easy to work for a shelter. But what I learned when I was there is that it's not very easy to for everyone to be compassionate, and that surprised me. A lot of people don't have the patience for a high degree of conflict and people who are just emotionally distraught. And these people are coming back to back sometimes in a day. It may be someone took my shampoo. It could be that minuscule, and this person is up in arms because a lot of times you're dealing with people with mental health issues or poor coping skills, and they're ready to fight, and they're misdirecting their anger at you, the person they're reporting to, and they'll say things like, "You better get up there and tell her because I'm going to fight her and I'm going to do this and that." So first you have to diffuse her, and then you have to go and find out if this accusation is even accurate. And that sort of thing I learned is a skill set. And I don't think that I knew that going into it. But after 20 years and seeing 90% of the people that came through their high turnaround, they weren't able to do that. That part comes from upbringing, spirituality, experience, because it wasn't as easy the first year as it was in the fifth year, and then again in the 10th year. It's not like it's a cookie cutter, but you do start to learn certain techniques that work, and you start to get the solutions faster. But also, you have to have a personal philosophy. You have to be self-aware. And I realized I was very in tune with wanting to make sure other people felt a sense of dignity when I spoke to them, no matter what the situation is. I don't care if it's a confrontation on the street. I don't care if it's when they're unhoused. I think, and this is something my mother taught me, most people seek, of all things, of all feelings, validation. That is the most sought after emotion. That is the reinforcement people want. Like you'll see people in different vernaculars seeking validation when they talk to you. They'll say something like, does that make sense? After they say a sentence. If in a hip hop vernacular, they say, "You feel me?" They want you to validate them. Validation is so important to people that they'll stop in the middle of their own communication and see if you're giving it to them. That's one of the most important lessons my mother ever told me. So when people come to me and they're upset, the first thing I do is try to understand and validate them, not whether they're right or wrong. I validate their right to feel the way that they feel. And there's a difference, It may be completely ridiculous, but I'm sorry that you feel that way. Well, what happened? Well, let's sit down, let's talk. Instead of using authority and going, "Don't come down here. It's late. It's after curfew. You're loud. Why don't you calm down?" One of the worst things you can do is tell an angry person to calm down. It's like fuel to the fire because it invalidates their right to feel the way that they feel. Don't even acknowledge it. Just say, "Wow, you feel that way? I'm sorry you feel that way," but don't acknowledge that you feel like their dander is up past the point that you allow, because who are you to determine what their level of anger should be? We all get upset sometimes. So these are little tricks and nuances that you learn through years, but some of it has to be upbringing. I mean, I'm convinced of that because when I would look around me and I would see others who didn't have that gift or skill set, and I'd see them get upset, and they'd always go into punitive. They'd always go into a punitive position, and I kind of look, because it's not my conversation. You don't want to disrupt if another coworker is handling it, but I would process. I would think it might have been more helpful if she didn't handle it that way, and then sooner or later, that person will circle back around and see me somewhere else and say, "Can I talk to you?" Because they remembered at some point in time that I made them feel validated, and we'll just sit and talk, and then they'll feel better about it. So, I mean, that is one of the most fulfilling things I like to be able to sit someone down and make them feel better about the situation or themselves. And so yeah,
Absolutely.
that yes.
Absolutely. You talk about, conflict resolution and understanding the root of the conflict. And so, why is it that people are, there's a lot of conflict in everywhere, either in the workplace, either in society, either in relationships. How do you think, or what is the way you would want them to look at these things in terms of the the root of the conflict as well as the resolution part of it in different areas of our life.
I think that a lot of times the root of conflict is a feeling of again being unvalidated and feeling a sense of powerlessness. Um, Most of the time, people feel disempowered. Um, a relationship, for instance, a person might feel like that person does not understand and validate them, and then that makes them emotional, and then they're triggered. And then when they're triggered, they have more emotional responses. They escalate their voice and they start to say hurtful things because those hurtful things kind of satisfy the function in their brains and just kind of want to go to war, to conflict. And that's something that that happens in our brains when we get upset about something. We need to have a release that's almost like an attack. That's why you have these like rec rooms now where people can go and hit and break stuff. That's why people get upset and hit walls and kick tires. We're wired to need to release, basically unleash is probably a better word for it. Knowing that is half the battle. If we understand that that's going to be our goal, I think we have to first start to self-examine and learn what our triggers are. When we start to know our own triggers, we can get ahead of them. Like if someone wants to talk to me about a triggering topic, and I won't mention what my triggers are because I think it's dangerous to just put them out there, but I'm aware of what they are. And other people who may know me may be in a social situation and bring up a particular topic. If I know that's my trigger and I'm at a party, it's a social setting, I'm going to decline the conversation altogether. Because I think what I used to do when I was younger and I wasn't mature enough to understand that the thing is to go into the battle, because the battle makes you feel empowered when you feel like you're winning. If you're going point for point, I think we're naturally competitive. It's like wanting to play a tennis match. It's a back and forth. It's like debates. We want to see who's superior. It's a self-preservation mechanism. I think it's in all of us animals, human animals, animals in the wild. They just need to lock horns to see who the alpha is. So when someone triggers you and they want to conflict with you, we tend to want to respond and show them. I did enough of that when I was younger, and it's something that is it's exasperating me at this point. Like it has to be very important to me to try to make a point, but I realize that if a person has positioned themselves as an op or an opponent, they're not trying to receive you. They're just trying to win. So you're kind of wasting words. If you're saying something profound at a time when someone's angry, it's a waste of words. It's actually better to defer to them and let them say what they need to say. Because then, number one, it's not a conflict because you're not pushing back. Number two, you're validating them. And then three, they might actually feel so much better by the end of that conversation that they're willing to listen to you. The other thing that's important to note, and this happens a lot in public and street, and this is what happens in work environments. I think sometimes people want a grandstand, like they're looking for an audience. So one of the things that I learned really early is that it's a way of not only empowering yourself, but it's empowering yourself with an audience, so they can carry on for you, and then it's like part of your folklore and your legacy. Well, I saw her do this, or he beat this guy up, and he said that, and this person back down. So one of the ways to diffuse that is to remove the audience. If someone, and I use the shelter a lot, but it's happening in the street as well. I mean, not everybody's mature, and people are in their own headspace, and someone can bump you, and I'll say, "Oh, excuse me," even though I know they bumped me. I'll say, "Excuse me," and they'll stand there and they'll wait for me to respond. I won't give them the response that they're looking for because it's not important to me. It's not important to me at all. It probably would have been when I was 17. I would have probably wanted to fight because, hey, you don't bump me. You know who I am? I'm going to show you who I am. I'm pretty tough. That to me, I mean, I'm a woman now. My whole idea of what it is to be a woman, to be a lady, to be feminine, it's not centered around fisticuffs that rolling around, especially with everybody having cell phones nowadays. I mean, that's a mistake that can reverberate for the rest of your life. And then I care too much about people to want to even hurt them. If that were to be the case, if there was a conflict and we became physical, one of us could get hurt, and we can get hurt permanently. You can't determine the outcome. So these are things you have to think about now. Don't wait until the conflict and figure it out. When you're in a calm space, if you're philosophical, if you want to self-examine and grow as a person, personal development, you have to have conversations in your head with yourself about situations that have bothered you before, and ask yourself, what am I going to do the next time? And then it becomes muscle memory. I was so prone to diffusion that it's a running joke with people who know me. People laugh at how calm I can be. I've had people jump and point and get in my face, and they'll say, "I'm sorry, you feel that way." Then people later on go, "How did you do that?" I would have flipped out, and I say, "No," because in my head, I ask myself, "What did she go through today? What if she lost her mother last week? What if she just got evicted? What if she found out she's terminally ill?" I immediately go to understanding. I seek to understand it. What is it that this person's going through? Maybe she has mental health issues. Maybe she needs to grandstand to empower herself because she's not empowered anywhere in her life. She could have been, she could be a survivor, and she feels disempowered because someone violated her, and this is how she gets her power. So for me, especially as a lifelong like counselor, into humanitarian, and just into caring about people's feelings and dignity, I don't want to bring this person any more conflict, disempowerment, feelings of violation, feelings of disenfranchisement, because I have the training that I have, and I commit myself from a spiritual standpoint due to my upbringing, in the fact that I have some notoriety and social stature. I hold myself to a higher standard, so I'll take the responsibility for diffusing that, even if it looks to most people around me like I'm punking out or backing down or whatever it may be. That does not matter to me, because the people who think that are misguided as well. And I've had people witness it and say to me, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that. She made a fool of you. I would have punched her. I would have hit her. I would have this and that." And I was like, and what is your end goal? A felony? Is that what you want? Because I don't want a felony on my record. I don't want to injure another person. I surely don't want them to injure me. And I don't want to have to look over my shoulder, because then you create an enemy. I literally had someone jump in my face in a donut shop one time because she thought I butt in front of her. And there's about 10 people in the donut shop. And I said, "Are you next?" And I know, I'm sorry. I said, "Have you been waited on?" She said, "Yes." I don't know, AJ, where the misunderstanding came in, but I stepped up and I put my order in. She jumped in front of you and said, "Hey, you jumped in front of me. I was next." And it was mind blowing. I said, "Wait, I asked you if you had been waited on." She said again, I said yes. And so I was so confused. And I was thinking maybe she doesn't understand that expression. So I said it once again. And she escalated. I said yes. And she kind of like got in my face, and everybody's looking. This is where the grandstanding would come in. Someone less mature, which would have been myself a long time ago, would have thought, "I can't let all these people see her treat me like this. I have to win. I have to escalate. I have to take this to the next level." But it's just something again my mother taught me. I took responsibility. I said, "I'm sorry. I must have misunderstood. After you. You're next. You're right." So then she goes up and she looks, and she's still trying to fuss. And I say, "That wasn't enough. I'm going to take it a step further." And I said, "As a matter of fact, let me pay for your order." And she stopped. The funny thing is that not only did she stop, AJ, the store stopped. It was like time froze. Everybody looked like, "What?" The lady behind the counter said, "You're going to do what?" And I said, "I'm going to pay for her order." And then the lady pulled back and looked at me, and she said, "You're a really nice lady. You're a really nice lady." And she touched her heart. She said, "I've never seen anything like that." And that made me really feel good, to be honest, because I didn't expect it to get so much attention. But I think it set a really good example for diffusion, for whatever the young lady was going through, whatever her issues may have been. And she told her, and she said, "Yeah, you're going to pay for my stuff?" And I said, "Yeah, I am, queen. What to pay for your stuff?" That might have been the most validation upliftment she had all day, all week, all year, or who knows in her life. You don't know what someone's gone through. You don't know if she's been beaten physically, browbeaten, talked down, called names. And I took an opportunity where she tried to make me feel small, and I uplifted her. So either way, she ended up on the pedestal where she wanted to be, and I was glad to give her that, because I use my position and my understanding to empower others, not to break them down or try to show out and make myself, feel like I'm superior, because I don't. That's misguided. There's nothing to gain. There's nothing society that gains from that, and there's nothing we gain from that as individuals.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's the real ideal conflict resolution is. But Al Bernard, can if you tell me about goal setting? We have so many people around us with different sort of attitude, aptitude, mental makeup, mindset, everything else, and they come with a lot of burden. How do we continue to, it's like a heavy traffic and you have to reach your destination reach your goals? How do we do that? What are the what is the way? We keep on getting diverted through somebody's
Yeah.
attitude, aptitude, or we keep on moving towards our goal. How do we do that?
I'm not sure I understood the last part of your question. You said, do we keep on getting diverted
Yes,
toward?
yes. Do we get distracted, diverted, and or rather we how do we make sure that we are moving still towards our goals?
Um, the short answer for that is to write it down. You do need to create a roadmap. You need to create objectives and timelines for those objectives, and that's how you know if you're on track. Because you're just making a mental note of what you think it is to be on track. Well, then you don't really have a guideline. You don't have a gauge. Did I lose you?
No,
Can you hear me
I
again?
can hear you except that the voice is a bit a bit low audio. Goal setting that with so many uh, different types of people we keep on meeting it in your case it was a store, it was a restaurant, but in other places it may not be a bit different sort of a setting. How do you ensure that you are keeping your cool, that you are moving towards your goal and not getting distracted by incidents? Sometimes every time you will not be able to have such a magnanimous heart. Every sometime you have to still
Yeah.
stand up.
If we're talking about personal development goals, versus
Yes.
personal development goals, AJ, we're only human. I think that we're going to constantly be works in progress because I think you can go 5 or 10 years past a point of immaturity and recognize that you've arrived with new information, with new muscle memory on how to respond to things, and then one thing can trigger you so badly that you revert back to your old behavior. I think that it's possible for us to revert back to who we are naturally, or who we've been, because it's probably the more natural state. The other state is a decision. Um, and we just have to allow ourselves these indiscretions and these mistakes. So I think as long as we're not doing anything that could put us in a criminal situation to where we're not able to get a job or seek a certain opportunity, then we have to give ourselves grace when we make mistakes, because it's not just like a straight and steady path with where eventually we stop making mistakes. Thinking that it is enough to make you feel like you're failing and keep you just disenfranchised and frustrated. But it's interesting that you asked that question, because if no one is told that, they might not know that. They might think that it looks exactly like that. In fact, I remember that I did when I was younger think, go to school, get some kind of higher educational skill set, get a job, stay in that job, get a house, retire. It was that cut and dry to me. Like nothing would come off of that path. And I thought if you were good, good things happen. Isn't that funny? I literally thought if you were good, only good things happen, and if you were bad, bad things would probably happen to you. And it was through my religious studies with my grandmother and just life experiences that I saw that sometimes some of the most I want to choose my words carefully. People in this world who are probably not the kindest, don't have the kindest hearts or the best intentions. Some are flat out malicious, are still sometimes greatly rewarded. They seem to be prosperous, popular. Sometimes bullies are popular. On the internet. Bullies are popular. And obnoxious type of characters tend to get really popular. And I think that's the part of us that gravitates toward the villain in the movie, the bad person that's inside of us, even if we suppress it. Feelings that we have, things that we wouldn't be bold enough to do or try. Sometimes we kind of root for the villain. So maybe that part is that's in all of us. But I think it's important that we do strive if we care to be. If there's nothing pathologically going on with us, to where we would need professional help. I think most of us want to be good people. Just like fundamentally good people. We don't want to steal from others. We don't want to hurt others. But hurt people, and we tend to act out according to what our experiences have been. But I think if you're talking about from a career standpoint, the way to make sure you're staying on track is to say, I mentioned earlier, write it down. I do that with everything. I actually write down what I'm going to do just about every day so that I stay on track, and every week. And sometimes I have to carry some of those checkpoints over because I don't finish them. because the day can get away from you. I'll give you an example. A typical day might be something as simple as go shopping and then you make a shopping list. Get eggs, get bacon, get whatever you're gonna have on your shopping list. I may say after that, stop by the post office and mail off this package to said important person. And then I might have another goal that says, call this number and check on that opportunity. And by the end of the day, one of those things might have gotten skipped because of traffic, because I ran into someone, because I forgot something and had to turn around and go the other way. And let's say it's just the post office. So now the post office goes from Monday's checklist to Tuesday's checklist. So now the first thing Tuesday is go to the post office. Then the next thing after that might be go pick up your cleaning, your dry cleaning. And the next thing after that might be finish writing your speech by the end of the night. And then I might fall asleep or not feel well. So then I might wake up and it's 3 a.m. and I'm like, I didn't finish writing my speech. Do I really have the mental capacity of writing a speech now? Or should I carry this over into the morning? So now that goes over into the next morning. So it doesn't have to fit into the exact frame, but you just have to keep moving forward towards your goals. And if you have, a speaking engagement that weekend, now you have your dry cleaning because you have your fresh suit. You know what I mean? You have breakfast, you have the coffee you wanted. You've gone to the post office and sent whatever you needed to, and yourself address stamped envelope. You got your speech written and gotten a chance to look over, edit it, record yourself. Now by the weekend, you put on all the things that you did that week lead toward that goal because that's what it was all for. So I think we need to look at them in tiny increments of time, and then realize that along the way, those are just pieces of a timeline. Because if you're trying, for myself, if I say I want to become a national speaker by the end of 2025, then that little goal for getting ready for that one weekend is kind of just a stepping stone of how to manage time and how to keep myself on track. Because if you don't, then what else is there? You're just going to get up randomly and say, oh, do I have time before work to go and get my suit? Oh, wow, there's a baby shower this weekend. Should I stay home and write my speech? Or should I think I'll go to the baby shower? And you have to discipline yourself about what's priority, what you're going to prioritize. And then you have to figure out for yourself how much time you need for something. Like I know approximately how much time it takes me to write something. Like as a journalist, I know that I can write and finish an article in about 24 hours, if need be the same day. However, I'm going to never edit the same day. It's not a good idea to try to edit something that you've written because the fatigue will make you see mistakes, So I definitely will need at least 2 days to write something because I need the next day to edit it with a fresh eye, fresh brain. And these are just things that you learn about yourself, and if I have time, maybe a third day. So then if I know that it's due on Friday, then I'm going to start writing on Monday or Tuesday so I can have all of those. So I wouldn't write it Thursday because then I can't edit. I don't have enough time to edit it. So some of it, again, is self-examination, knowing thyself and, discipline and repetition, because it takes, you're a journalist. It's not going to be your first article that you know that about yourself. It's going to take you time and time again to realize how you operate, what your MO is. And once you get that down, then it becomes discipline. Because if I know I need 3 days and there's a party going on, I literally had to start saying, I can't go out with you guys. I have an article due because I worked for a really huge publication called allhiphop.com. And ironically, inside of a smaller publication, but the smaller publication was a state paper. So it's the big fish in a small pond. So for instance, for Delaware, the News Journal is like the statewide paper. So I worked for the News Journal, and allhiphop.com, which is an international site, had a segment in there. So I worked for that website as well as that smaller. I guess we could have like 2 pages in there. So I enjoyed it because I enjoyed the local audience, because internationally I don't run into anyone, but locally I had the pleasure of being able to go to the supermarket and they're saying, hey, are you the lady that's the columnist? And that was a lot of fun, the notoriety and that sort of thing. But knowing that maybe like hundreds of thousands of people are going to read your article, you better discipline yourself. You don't want that going out to people where they're like, did she write this when she was sleepy? What is this? Or have the editor calling you and going, this is not even coherent. So, it's that's how I think you stay on track for goals. You write them down, you come up with timelines, and you just move them over to the next day with respect to where the goal is. And I'm a strong stickler for soft deadlines. If something's due Friday and I know that a week ahead, I tell myself it's due Wednesday, and I do everything as if it were due on Wednesday, to the point where if I need 2 days to edit, then I start the editing on Monday, and then it'll be done by Wednesday. So Friday, Thursday, or Friday is just margin of error. So those are all things, time management and discipline, and writing things down to stay on track.
Absolutely. There's much to learn from you about life, about goal setting, about motivation, about self value, about conflict and resolution. And so, a lot of people would like to connect with you, learn more from you, about all these things. What is the best way for them to do so, Alberna?
You can actually reach out to me on Facebook. On Facebook, my name is spelled a little different. It's Elleburnner. It was the L burner that you see here on your screen, but then Facebook started like not letting you have cool names, and they were like, "No, put a name." So that's not my literal name, L. It's just a clever way of spelling the letter. So when you go to Facebook, you see ELLE. It's really still me, L Burner. So yeah, you can reach out to me on L Burner. I have a hashtag on Facebook, and it's keep the light around you. Everything is spelled literally except a U. Keep the light around you, letter U. And if you put in that hashtag, you see that there are hundreds of writings that I have on there that sort of like the conversation you and I are having, AJ. They're philosophical and inspirational, sometimes from my own experiences, and sometimes just general advice that comes from a spiritual and loving place to help people love themselves and protect their energy.
Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me, AJ. I enjoyed the conversation.